He was fired in front of everyone. What came next destroyed the company. The silence in the auditorium was absolute. Lucas Bennett stood under the stage lights, his employee badge still clipped to his shirt, hands clasped in front of him like a defendant awaiting verdict. 400 faces stared back. Some looked confused. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few, mostly from the executive row, watched with cold satisfaction. Richard Halvorsen stood at the podium, his voice calm and measured, the kind of tone reserved for necessary corrections. Failure to disclose material compliance issues. Breach of fiduciary duty. A pattern of negligence that put this company, and everyone in this room, at regulatory risk. Each word landed like a stone in still water. Lucas had opened his mouth twice to respond. Both times, Halvorsen had simply continued speaking, louder, more assured. The message was clear, this wasn't a conversation. Security was already walking down the aisle. Lucas felt heat crawling up the back of his neck. Not anger. Not yet. Something worse. Shame. The kind that makes you want to vanish. He'd worked at Meridian Financial Solutions for 6 years. He'd stayed late. He'd flagged problems before they became disasters. He'd done exactly what a compliance officer was supposed to do. And now, in front of everyone he'd worked alongside, spoken to in the break room, shared projects with, he was being erased. Lucas, we'll need your badge. The security guard's voice was quiet, almost apologetic. Lucas unclipped it with shaking hands. The small plastic card felt heavier than it should. He turned. Walked up the aisle in dead silence. 400 people. Not one spoke. Somewhere near the back, someone coughed. That was the only sound. When he reached the double doors and pushed through, he heard Halvorsen's voice resume behind him, smooth and confident. Now, let's talk about our Q3 projections. The door clicked shut, and Lucas Bennett's career was over. Before we dive deep into this jaw-dropping story, quick pause. Drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. I love seeing our global Curious Chronicles family light up the map. If you're already hooked and craving more inspiring and captivating stories that poke curiosity like this one, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We drop beautiful, heart-pounding stories every week that you seriously don't want to miss. So let's dive right into it. 3 months earlier, Lucas sat in his small office on the 4th floor, 2 monitors glowing in front of him, spreadsheets open across both screens. It was 6:47 p.m. Most of the building had emptied an hour ago, but Lucas had learned long ago that compliance work didn't respect office hours. He was reviewing disclosures for Meridian Series C funding round, $200 million from a consortium of venture firms and institutional investors. It was the kind of deal that could make or break a company. The kind that required everything to be spotless. And something wasn't. Lucas scrolled back through the investor memo, cross-referencing it with the internal risk assessments he'd compiled over the past quarter. There it was again, a footnote about securities registration that didn't align with what he documented. He opened his email and pulled up the thread from 2 weeks prior. He'd flagged this exact issue. Sent it to his supervisor, copied legal, CC'd the CFO. The response had been vague. We're reviewing with outside counsel. We'll loop you in. They hadn't looped him in. Lucas leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. He wasn't a troublemaker. He didn't enjoy being the person who raised red flags. But this wasn't a minor discrepancy. If Meridian was offering unregistered securities to investors without proper disclosure, it wasn't just a compliance misstep, it was a federal violation. He drafted another email. Polite. Precise. Attached the relevant documentation. He hesitated before hitting send. In 6 years at Meridian, Lucas had built a reputation for being thorough but not abrasive. He didn't grandstand. He didn't send all-caps emails or schedule emergency meetings. He raised issues quietly, trusted the system to correct itself, and moved on. But lately, something had changed. The company had grown fast. Too fast. maybe. Headcount had tripled. The executive team was younger, hungrier, more focused on growth metrics than governance. Compliance had become a box to check, not a standard to uphold. Lucas hit send. 2 days later, he was called into a meeting. It was in one of the glass-walled conference rooms on the executive floor. Lucas had only been up here a handful of times. The furniture was nicer. The coffee was better. Richard Halvorsen was already seated when Lucas arrived. So was the CFO, the general counsel, and Lucas's direct supervisor, a woman named Karen Dietrich who avoided eye contact as Lucas sat down. "Lucas," Halvorsen said, smiling. "Thanks for coming up." "Of course. We wanted to talk about your email. The one regarding the securities registration issue." Lucas nodded. "I'm happy to walk through the details if that's helpful." Halvorsen leaned forward, hands folded on the table. "Here's the thing. We appreciate your diligence. We really do. But we've been working with outside counsel on this, and they've assured us that the structure we're using falls within safe harbor provisions. It's complex, I know, but it's been vetted." Lucas frowned. "I didn't see anything in the documentation about safe harbor. Can I review the legal opinion?" There was a pause. Karen shifted in her seat. The general counsel glanced at Halvorsen. "Lucas," Halvorsen said, his tone still friendly but firmer now, "we need you to trust the process here. We've got top-tier lawyers on this. What we need from you is to help us close this round smoothly. We're days away from finalizing. This is a career-defining moment for everyone at this company." Lucas felt something tighten in his chest. "I understand that. But if the disclosure documents aren't accurate—" "They are accurate," the general counsel interrupted. "We're confident in our position." Lucas looked around the table. No one was meeting his eyes except Halvorsen. "Okay," Lucas said slowly. "Then I just need to see the supporting documentation before I sign off on the final compliance review." Halvorsen's smile thinned. "We're not asking you to sign off on anything you're uncomfortable with. In fact, we're going to have external counsel handle the final review. That way, there's no ambiguity. You've done your part." "But that's my job," Lucas said quietly. "And you've done it well," Halvorsen said. "Now we're bringing in specialists. It's not a reflection on you. It's just the nature of a deal this size." Lucas sat there, the fluorescent light humming above him, and realized what was happening. They were taking him off the project. Not because he'd done something wrong. Because he'd done exactly what he was supposed to do. That night, Lucas told his wife. Emma was folding laundry in the living room when he came home. She looked up, saw his face, and stopped mid-fold. "What happened?" Lucas sat down on the edge of the couch. "They're sidelining me. On the Series C." "Why?" "Because I flagged something they don't want flagged." Emma set down the laundry and sat beside him. "Did you do something wrong?" "No." "Then why?" "Because it's easier," Lucas said. "Easier to replace me with someone who won't ask questions." Emma was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to do?" Lucas didn't answer right away. He thought about the meeting. The way Halvorsen had smiled at him. The way Karen had looked at the table instead of at him. "I don't know," he admitted. And he didn't. Because doing the right thing had always been enough before. But now, for the first time in his career, Lucas wasn't sure the right thing mattered anymore. Lucas sat in his car in the parking garage for 20 minutes before he could bring himself to drive home. His hands were still shaking. Not violently, just a faint tremor he couldn't control. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, as if that might steady them, but it didn't help. The badge sat in the cup holder. They'd let him keep it after all. Probably an oversight. Probably didn't matter. He started the engine and drove. Emma was in the kitchen when he walked in. She looked up from her laptop, smiled, then stopped mid-sentence when she saw his face. "What happened?" Lucas set his messenger bag down by the door. I was fired. The words felt strange coming out of his mouth. Clinical. Like he was describing something that had happened to someone else. Emma stood. What? At the all-hands meeting. In front of everyone. She crossed the kitchen, reached for him, but Lucas moved past her toward the living room. He sat down on the couch heavily, elbows on his knees, staring at the coffee table. Emma followed, sat beside him. Lucas. What? Why? What did they say? They said I failed to disclose compliance issues. That I put the company at risk. His voice was flat. Mechanical. Halvorsen did it himself. Just stood there and... He stopped. Replayed it in his head for the 100th time. The lights. The silence. The way no one had looked at him. That doesn't make sense, Emma said. You've been flagging issues for months. You told me. I know what I told you. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, softer, what are you going to do? Lucas didn't answer. He didn't know. The next morning, Lucas woke up at 6:15 a.m., same as always. For a few seconds, he forgot. His brain ran through the usual routine. Shower, coffee, check email, leave by 7:30. Then he remembered. He didn't have email to check anymore. He rolled over, stared at the ceiling. Emma was already up. He could hear her moving around downstairs. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. LinkedIn notification. Sarah Vickers wants to connect. He opened the app. 15 new connection requests. All recruiters. All with messages that started with, "Saw you're exploring new opportunities." Lucas felt something cold settle in his stomach. He hadn't updated his profile. Hadn't marked himself as open to work. Someone at Meridian had leaked it. He sat up, scrolled through the requests. Most were generic. A few referenced his experience in fintech compliance. One mentioned Meridian specifically. He accepted a few. Sent polite replies. Yes, exploring options. Happy to chat. Within an hour, 3 of them had responded. By noon, all 3 had gone silent. On day 3, Lucas got a call from a former colleague. Marcus O'Hearn. They'd worked together on a cross-functional team 2 years ago. Good guy. Solid project manager. They'd gotten lunch a few times. Hey man, Marcus said when Lucas picked up. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. Thanks. Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up. Marcus lowered his voice, like he was somewhere he shouldn't be talking. People are asking questions. About what really happened. Lucas sat up straighter. What are people saying? Officially? Nothing. But there's a narrative going around. That you were, Marcus hesitated. That you were difficult to work with. That you pushed back on stuff you shouldn't have. That compliance was flagging things that didn't need to be flagged, and it was slowing down critical deals. Lucas felt his jaw tighten. That's not what happened. I know, man. I know. But that's what they're saying. And it's coming from the top. From Halvorsen. I don't know. Maybe. But it's spreading fast. HR sent out some kind of internal memo. I didn't see it, but people are talking. Lucas leaned back against the couch, phone pressed to his ear. They're covering their asses. Yeah, Marcus said quietly. I think they are. There was a long pause. Lucas, I don't know what you're planning to do, but just be careful. This company has a lot of resources. And a lot of lawyers. Noted. I'm serious. I've seen this before. They'll bury you if they think you're a threat. I'm not a threat, Lucas said. I'm just trying to find a job. Marcus didn't respond right away. Then, okay. Well, if you need a reference or anything, let me know. Thanks, Marcus. They hung up. Lucas sat there in the quiet of his living room, staring at his phone. They're telling a different story. By the end of the week, Lucas had sent out 19 applications. He tailored each one carefully, highlighted his compliance experience, kept the Meridian section brief and professional, led regulatory reviews for Series B and Series C funding rounds, managed cross-functional compliance initiatives. He got 4 responses. 3 were automated rejections. The 4th was from a mid-sized SaaS company in Boston. They wanted to schedule a call. Lucas prepared. He researched the company, reviewed their financials, wrote down talking points. The call was scheduled for Tuesday at 2 p.m. At 1:47 p.m., he got an email. "Hi Lucas, unfortunately we're going to move forward with other candidates at this time. Thank you for your interest." No explanation. No call. Lucas stared at the email for a long time. Then he opened LinkedIn again and searched for the recruiter who'd reached out. Her profile said she was a senior talent acquisition partner. 15 years in fintech recruiting. He sent her a message. "Hi, just wanted to follow up on our conversation. Is there any feedback you can share about why the role didn't move forward?" She responded 6 hours later. "Hi Lucas, I'm not able to provide specific feedback, but I'd recommend reaching out to your previous employer for a reference. Best of luck." Lucas read it 3 times. Then he opened his email and searched for every message he'd sent in the past 2 weeks. Every application. Every recruiter conversation. Every single one had gone cold after he mentioned Meridian. That night, Emma found him at the kitchen table with his laptop open. "It's almost midnight," she said gently. Lucas didn't look up. "I know. Come to bed." "I will. Just give me a minute." Emma sat down across from him. "What are you doing?" Lucas finally looked at her. His eyes were red. Exhausted. "I'm pulling my files," he said. "Every email. Every report I filed. Every compliance memo I sent. All of it." "Why?" "Because something's wrong." His voice was quiet but certain. "They didn't just fire me, Emma. They're making sure no one else will hire me. And I need to know why." Emma reached across the table, placed her hand over his. "Lucas, maybe you should just let it go. Move on. Find something outside fintech." "I can't." "Why not?" He looked at her, and for the first time since the firing, there was something other than numbness in his eyes. "Because I didn't do anything wrong." Emma squeezed his hand but didn't say anything. Lucas turned back to his laptop, opened his personal email. He'd been forwarding documents to himself for years, standard practice for compliance officers. Backups in case the company servers went down. He had everything. He started downloading files. One by one. Compliance reports. Risk assessments. Email threads. Meeting notes. It took him 2 hours. When he finally closed the laptop, it was past 2 a.m. Emma had gone to bed. The house was silent. Lucas sat there in the dark kitchen, staring at the blank screen. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He opened the message. "Stop asking questions. You don't want this fight." Lucas stared at the screen. His hands weren't shaking anymore. Lucas didn't respond to the text message. He stared at it for a long time. "Stop asking questions. You don't want this fight." Then deleted it and turned off his phone. The next morning, he started applying to jobs outside fintech entirely. Insurance companies. Healthcare providers. Even a mid-sized manufacturing firm in Ohio that needed a compliance director. None of them called back. By week 3, the savings account had dropped below $4,000. Lucas sat at the kitchen table with the bank statement open in front of him, doing math he didn't want to do. Mortgage. Car payment. Health insurance. Cobra was bleeding them dry. Groceries. Utilities. They had maybe 2 months. 3 if they were careful. Emma came downstairs, already dressed for work. She taught middle school English. Steady income. Benefits. It was keeping them afloat. She glanced at the statement, then at Lucas. Any responses? No. She poured herself coffee, leaned against the counter. Have you thought about, I don't know, consulting? Freelance compliance work? Something to bring in cash while you look. I've thought about it. And? Lucas closed the laptop. No one's going to hire me if they think I'm a liability. And right now, that's exactly what Meridian's made me look like. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, Lucas, maybe it's time to just let this go. He looked up at her. I'm serious, she continued. You didn't do anything wrong. We both know that. But fighting them, what does that get you? More legal bills? More stress? We can't afford this. I'm not fighting anyone. You're not letting it go either. Lucas stood, walked to the window. Outside, their neighbor was loading his kids into a minivan. Normal morning. Normal life. They're lying about me, Lucas said quietly. Everywhere I go, the story's already there. I can feel it. And I can't even defend myself because I don't know what they're saying. Emma set down her coffee. So what do you want to do? I want to know the truth. And then what? Lucas didn't answer. Emma sighed, grabbed her bag. I have to go. Just think about what I said, okay? She kissed him on the cheek and left. Lucas stood there in the empty kitchen, listening to the sound of her car pulling out of the driveway. That afternoon, Lucas did something he'd been avoiding. He Googled himself. The results were worse than he expected. The first page was clean, his LinkedIn, an old conference talk he'd given, a compliance blog he'd contributed to once. But on the second page, buried in a forum for fintech professionals, he found a thread. The subject line, anyone worked with Lucas Bennett at Meridian? He clicked. The original post was from someone with the username fintechrecruiter_09, considering a candidate who used to work at Meridian Financial. Name is Lucas Bennett. Anyone have experience working with him? DMs open. There were 4 replies. The first was vague, worked with him briefly. Smart guy but very rigid. Not great in fast-paced environments. The second was more pointed. He was let go for cause. Compliance issues. Ironically. Wouldn't recommend. The third. Heard he clashed with leadership a lot. Cultural fit was a problem. The fourth was just a single word. Pass. Lucas read them twice. Then a third time. None of it was true. But it didn't matter. This was the story. And it was already out there, living in search results and recruiter databases and whispered conversations he'd never be part of. He closed the browser and sat back. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He got out of bed around 2 a.m., went downstairs, opened his laptop. He told himself he was just going to check email. Maybe send out a few more applications. But his hands moved on autopilot, pulling up Meridian's website instead. The homepage had been redesigned. Sleeker. More investor-focused. There was a press release banner at the top. Meridian Financial Solutions closes $200 million Series C led by Arcadia Ventures. Lucas clicked. The press release was dated 3 weeks after his firing. It was full of the usual corporate language: transformative growth, innovative solutions, market leadership. But one paragraph caught his eye. This funding round reflects the confidence our investors have in Meridian's compliance infrastructure and risk management practices. We've worked closely with top-tier legal and regulatory advisors to ensure our disclosures meet the highest standards. Lucas read it again. Compliance infrastructure. Highest standards. He opened a new tab and searched for Meridian Series C investor memo. It was publicly available. Had to be, for certain types of institutional investors. He found it on a financial database and downloaded the PDF. It was 73 pages long. Lucas skimmed it. Most of it was standard: financials, growth projections, market analysis. But on page 47, there was a section titled Regulatory Compliance and Risk Management. He read it carefully. It outlined Meridian's approach to compliance, cited their internal controls, referenced an external legal review conducted by a firm called Whitmore and Associates. Lucas frowned. He'd never heard of Whitmore and Associates. He opened a new tab and searched for them. High-end corporate law firm. Offices in New York, San Francisco, London. Specialized in securities law and regulatory compliance. Lucas went back to the memo. Scrolled down. There, in a footnote at the bottom of page 48, was a single line. Compliance review completed by Whitmore and Associates in consultation with internal leadership. Final certification dated August 14, 2024. August 14. Lucas pulled up his calendar. Scrolled back. August 14 was 3 days after he'd been removed from the Series C review. And 2 weeks before he was fired. He sat there, staring at the screen. They'd replaced him. Hired an external firm. And somehow convinced them to certify disclosures Lucas had explicitly flagged as non-compliant. He opened his personal files. Found the compliance memo he'd sent in July. It was still there. Time-stamped. Unambiguous. The current offering structure does not meet SEC registration requirements under Section 5 of the Securities Act. I cannot certify these disclosures as compliant without additional legal review and restructuring. Lucas compared it to the language in the investor memo. The memo claimed the offering had been fully vetted and met all regulatory requirements. Someone had lied. And they'd paid Whitmore and Associates $340,000 to make it look legitimate. Lucas sat back, his heart pounding. This wasn't just a bad firing. This was securities fraud. And he had proof. The next morning, Lucas's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something made him pick up. Lucas Bennett. The voice was male, professional, clipped. Yes. My name is David Ortega. I'm an attorney with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Division of Enforcement. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your time at Meridian Financial Solutions. Lucas froze. Mr. Bennett. I'm here. We're conducting an inquiry into certain disclosures made in connection with Meridian's recent funding round. Your name came up in some internal documentation. I was hoping we could schedule a time to talk. Lucas's mouth was dry. What kind of inquiry? I can't discuss specifics over the phone. But I can tell you this is a voluntary conversation at this stage. You're not under investigation. We're just gathering information. Lucas looked down at his laptop. The investor memo was still open. When do you want to meet? He asked. How's tomorrow? 2 p.m.? We have an office in downtown. Lucas hesitated. Then he said, I'll be there. He hung up, sat there in the silence, and realized that everything was about to change. Lucas didn't tell Emma about the SEC call. Not right away. He told himself it was because he didn't want to worry her, but the truth was simpler. He didn't know what it meant yet. And until he did, talking about it would only make it real. Instead, he spent the rest of the day doing what he did best. He organized. Lucas pulled every file he had. Emails. Compliance reports. Risk assessments. Meeting notes. He'd been forwarding documents to his personal account for years, standard practice in compliance, in case company servers crashed or files mysteriously disappeared during audits. He'd never expected to need them like this. He created a folder on his desktop labeled Meridian, Series C, and started sorting. Chronologically. By topic. By sender. He built a timeline in a spreadsheet, color-coded by severity. July 12th, first compliance memo flagging registration issues. July 19th, follow-up email to Karen Dietrich and General Counsel. July 26th, Meeting with Halvorsen. No written record, but Lucas added his own notes from memory. August 11th. Removed from Series C review. Reassigned to special projects. August 14th. External review completed by Whitmore and Associates. September 2nd. Terminated. September 18th. Series C closes. $200 million. He stared at the timeline for a long time. Then he opened the public investor memo again and started comparing. The differences were small. Surgical. In Lucas's original July compliance report, he'd written, "The proposed offering structure includes unregistered securities under Section 5 of the Securities Act. Current disclosure documents do not address this gap and may constitute a material omission." In the final investor memo, the one certified by Whitmore and Associates, the language read, "All securities offered in connection with this round have been reviewed for compliance with applicable SEC regulations. External counsel has confirmed that disclosure requirements have been met." It was careful. Technically vague. But it said the opposite of what Lucas had documented. He kept digging. Page 51 of the investor memo included a section on governance and internal controls. It listed Meridian's compliance team and referenced ongoing oversight by experienced regulatory professionals. Lucas's name wasn't mentioned. Instead, there was a footnote, "Compliance review conducted in partnership with Whitmore and Associates, August 2024. Lucas opened a new tab and searched for Whitmore and Associates again. He found their website. Clicked through to Our Team. Scrolled down the list of partners. There. Gerald Whitmore, Senior Partner. Princeton undergrad. Yale Law. 30 years in securities law. Board member of several fintech startups. And in his bio, buried in the third paragraph, Mr. Whitmore serves on the advisory board of Arcadia Ventures. Arcadia Ventures. Lucas went back to the press release. Meridian Financial Solutions closes $200 million Series C led by Arcadia Ventures. He sat back. The law firm that certified Meridian's disclosures had a senior partner on the board of the lead investor. Lucas pulled up Whitmore and Associates' public filings. Law firms above a certain size had to disclose payments from publicly traded companies or those preparing to go public. It took him 20 minutes to find the right database, but eventually he did. There it was. Whitmore and Associates had received 2 payments from Meridian Financial Solutions in Q3 2024. The first, $125,000. Listed as regulatory consultation. The second, $215,000. Listed as compliance review and certification. Total, $340,000. Lucas looked at the dates. Both payments had been made in August. After he'd been removed from the project. After he'd flagged the exact issues Whitmore was supposedly reviewing. He opened his email archive and searched for any correspondence with Whitmore and Associates. Nothing. He searched for Gerald Whitmore's name. Nothing. He searched for any mention of external counsel being brought in for the Series C. One result. An email from Karen Dietrich to the executive team, dated August 9th. Lucas had been CC'd, though he didn't remember seeing it at the time. The subject line, Series C Compliance, External Review. The body was brief. Team, we've engaged Whitmore and Associates to provide an independent compliance review for the Series C round. This will ensure we have the highest level of confidence in our disclosures. Please direct any questions to Richard or myself. Lucas read it 3 times. Independent. He laughed. It came out bitter. That night, Emma found him still at the kitchen table. "It's past midnight," she said, leaning against the doorway. Lucas looked up. He hadn't realized how late it was. "What are you doing?" "Research." Emma crossed her arms. "Lucas, you have a meeting with the SEC tomorrow. You should be sleeping." "I know. So come to bed." "I will. He gestured at the laptop. "I need to finish this." Emma walked over, looked at the screen. Spreadsheets. Documents. Timelines. What is all this? Lucas hesitated. Then, it's everything. Every email I sent. Every report. Every memo. And I'm cross-referencing it with what Meridian actually disclosed to investors. Why? Because they lied, Emma. About the compliance review. About the risks. About me. Emma sat down across from him. Okay. Let's say they did. What are you going to do about it? I don't know yet. The SEC is already investigating. Let them handle it. They don't know what I know. Then tell them tomorrow. Lucas looked at her. What if they don't believe me? Why wouldn't they? Because I'm the guy who got fired. I'm the disgruntled employee with an axe to grind. And Meridian has a $340,000 legal opinion saying everything was fine. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, but you have the original documents. The real ones. Yeah. Then that's what you show them. Lucas nodded slowly. But his stomach was tight. Because he knew how these things worked. It wasn't about who was right. It was about who had the better story. And Meridian had already spent months building theirs. The next morning, Lucas put on a suit for the first time in weeks. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie, and barely recognized himself. He looked thinner, tired, older. Emma came up behind him, fixed his collar. You'll be fine, she said. Lucas didn't respond. He drove downtown, parked in a garage, and walked 3 blocks to a grey office building with no signage. The SEC's regional office. The lobby was quiet. Corporate. A receptionist checked his ID and handed him a visitor badge. 9th floor. Someone will meet you. Lucas took the elevator up. When the doors opened, a woman in a navy suit was waiting. Mr. Bennett. Yes. I'm Jessica Nguyen, staff attorney. Mr. Ortega is expecting you. She led him down a hallway lined with frosted glass offices. At the end, she opened a door to a small conference room. David Ortega was already inside. Mid-40s. Wire-rimmed glasses. A stack of files in front of him. Lucas. Thanks for coming in. He gestured to a chair. Please, have a seat. Lucas Saturday. Ortega opened a folder, glanced at something, then looked up. I'll get right to it. We're looking into Meridian Series C disclosures. Specifically, whether certain risk factors were adequately disclosed to investors. Your name came up in some internal emails we obtained through a subpoena. Lucas's pulse quickened. What kind of emails? Compliance memos. Flagged issues. You were the author. I was. Ortega leaned forward. Walk me through what you flagged. And why? Lucas took a breath. And then he told him everything. 20 minutes later, Ortega stopped him. Hold on. You're saying you documented all of this? In writing? Yes. And you still have copies? Yes. Ortega exchanged a glance with Jessica Nguyen. Mr. Bennett, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Did you participate in any way in the preparation of the final disclosures that were submitted to investors? No. I was removed from the project in August. And you were terminated in September? Yes. Why? Lucas hesitated. They said I failed to disclose compliance issues. That I put the company at risk. Ortega's expression didn't change. That's the opposite of what these emails suggest. I know. Ortega closed the folder. Sat back. Mr. Bennett, I'm going to be very direct with you. If what you're telling me is accurate, Meridian may have committed securities fraud. But proving that requires documentation. Contemporaneous records. Evidence that can't be explained away. I have it. All of it. Yes. Ortega studied him for a long moment. Then he said, I need you to provide everything you have. Every email. Every memo. Every document. And I need you to do it without telling anyone. Lucas felt his chest tighten. Why? Because if Meridian finds out you're cooperating with us, they'll bury you in legal motions before we can finish the investigation. And if that happens, this whole thing goes away. Lucas stared at him. Can you do that? Ortega asked. Before Lucas could answer, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. Unknown number. A text message. We know you met with the SEC. Walk away now, or this gets worse. Lucas's hands went cold. Lucas stared at the text message. We know you met with the SEC. Walk away now, or this gets worse. Ortega was still talking, but Lucas couldn't hear him. The words were muffled, distant, like he was underwater. Mr. Bennett. Lucas looked up. Ortega was watching him carefully. Everything okay? Lucas slipped his phone back into his pocket. Yeah. Sorry. What were you saying? Ortega exchanged another glance with Jessica Nguyen. I was asking if you can provide the documents we discussed, without telling anyone. Lucas nodded slowly. Yes. I can do that. Good. We'll need them by the end of the week. Can you manage that? Yes. Ortega stood, extended his hand. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. This could be very important. Lucas shook his hand and left. He sat in his car for 10 minutes before starting the engine. His hands were shaking again. He gripped the steering wheel, tried to steady his breathing. They know. How did they know? The SEC office didn't have public visitor logs. He hadn't told anyone except Emma. And even she didn't know the meeting was today. Unless someone was watching. Lucas looked around the parking garage. Empty. Silent. Just rows of cars under flickering fluorescent lights. He started the car and drove home. Emma was grading papers at the dining room table when he walked in. She looked up. How did it go? Lucas set his keys down. They want everything. Every document I have. That's good, right? I don't know. Emma frowned. What do you mean you don't know? Lucas pulled out his phone, showed her the text. Emma's face went pale. When did you get this? During the meeting. Lucas. I know. This is a threat. I know. Emma stood, pacing now. You need to tell the SEC. Show them this. They can. They can what? Lucas's voice was sharper than he intended. Track down an unknown number? That's not how this works, Emma. She stopped, looked at him. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to give them the documents. Like they asked. And then what? You think Meridian's just going to let this go? Lucas didn't answer. Emma sat back down, rubbed her face. Lucas, I'm scared. So am I. Then maybe we should stop. Just walk away. Move on. I can't. Why not? Because they're lying. They're lying to investors, to regulators, to everyone. And they're using me as a scapegoat for it. Emma looked at him for a long time. Then, quietly, what if you lose? What if we lose everything? Lucas didn't have an answer for that. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the meeting over and over. Ortega's questions. The text message. The weight of what he was about to do. Around 2 a.m., he got up, went downstairs, opened his laptop. He Googled whistleblower retaliation. The results were grim. Story after story of people who'd reported fraud, corruption, misconduct, and had their lives destroyed for it. Blacklisted from their industries. buried in legal fees. Marriages falling apart under the pressure. Lucas closed the browser. He opened a new tab and searched for Whistleblower Protection Sec. There were protections. Technically, Dodd-Frank had provisions. Anti-retaliation statutes. But reading the fine print made it clear, the burden of proof was on the whistleblower. And even if you won, it could take years. Lucas leaned back in his chair. He thought about calling a lawyer. Getting advice. But lawyers cost money, and he barely had enough to cover next month's mortgage. His phone buzzed. Another text. Same unknown number. Last chance. Lucas set the phone down. Stood up. Walked to the window and looked out at the empty street. The next morning, Emma asked him to take a walk. They didn't usually walk together on weekdays. She had to be at school early, but she'd called in sick. Said she needed to talk. They walked through their neighborhood in silence for a while. Past houses with tidy lawns and minivans in driveways. Normal lives. Finally, Emma spoke. I talked to my dad last night. Lucas looked at her. About what? About us. About this situation. Lucas stopped walking. Emma, I didn't want to drag your family into this. They're already in it. We all are. She turned to face him. He said he could help. Financially. Just until you find something stable. Lucas felt something tighten in his chest. I don't want your dad's money. I know you don't. But Lucas, we're drowning here. The mortgage, the insurance, the bills, we can't keep doing this. I'll find something. When? We've been saying that for weeks. Lucas looked away. I know. My dad also said, she hesitated. He said you should let this go. This sec thing. That it's not worth it. Lucas's jaw tightened. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He knows what happens to people who fight companies like Meridian. They lose, Lucas. Every time. Not every time. Emma's voice rose. Yes. Every time. You think you're the first person to try this? You think the system is going to magically work for you when it doesn't work for anyone else. Lucas didn't respond. Emma softened. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to protect us. Our marriage. Our future. I know. Then please. Just think about it. Really think about it. They walked back home in silence. That afternoon, Lucas's phone rang. Unknown number again. This time, he answered. Hello. Silence. Then a voice. Male. Calm. Unfamiliar. Mr. Bennett, my name is Aaron Prescott. I'm General Counsel at Meridian Financial Solutions. I'm calling to offer you an opportunity. Lucas felt his pulse quicken. What kind of opportunity? We understand you've been having some difficulty finding new employment. That's unfortunate. And frankly, unnecessary. We'd like to help. How? We're prepared to offer you a severance package. Retroactive. 6-month salary, continuation of health benefits, and a neutral reference for any future employers. Lucas was quiet. Prescott continued. All we ask in return is that you sign a standard separation agreement. Non-disparagement. Confidentiality. Nothing unusual. And if I don't? Then you remain where you are. Unemployed. Uninsured. With a professional reputation that's, let's be honest, been significantly damaged. Lucas gripped the phone tighter. This is because I talked to the SEC. Prescott didn't miss a beat. I don't know what you're referring to. This is simply a goodwill gesture. Former employees sometimes slip through the cracks during transitions. We're correcting that. By asking me to sign away my right to talk. By offering you a lifeline, Mr. Bennett. Take it or don't. The offer expires in 48 hours. The line went dead. Lucas stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. That night, Lucas sat down with Emma and told her about the call. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "You should take it." Emma. Lucas, 6 months salary? That solves everything. We can breathe again. You can find a real job without the pressure. We can move on. They're trying to silence me. So let them. What does it matter? You already talked to the SEC. You already gave them what they needed. Let them handle it from here. Lucas shook his head. It's not that simple. Why not? Because if I sign that agreement, I can't testify. I can't help the investigation. And without me, they have nothing. Emma stood, pacing now. So let someone else be the hero. Why does it have to be you? Because no one else will. Emma stopped, turned to face him. Her eyes were red. I can't do this, Lucas. I can't sit here every day wondering if we're going to lose the house. If you're going to get sued. If someone's going to... She stopped herself. If someone's going to what? She didn't answer. Lucas realized what she'd been about to say. Emma, they're not going to hurt me. They're not criminals. They're business people trying to protect their company. You don't know that. Yes, I do. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it anymore. The next day, Lucas got a notification on his phone. Bloomberg News alert. Meridian Financial Solutions closes oversubscribed Series C round at $200 million valuation. Lucas clicked the link. There was a photo. Richard Halvorson standing in front of the Meridian logo, smiling. Confident. Victorious. The article quoted him, "This funding reflects the market's confidence in our vision and our commitment to building responsibly. We've worked hard to ensure our governance and compliance infrastructure meet the highest standards." Lucas read it twice. Then he opened YouTube and searched for Meridian Financial CNBC. There it was. An interview from earlier that morning. Halvorson on Squawk Box, sitting across from the anchor, polished and articulate. "So Richard, congratulations on the round. $200 million is no small feat. What's next for Meridian?" Halvorson smiled. "We're focused on scaling responsibly. Too many companies grow fast and forget about the fundamentals: compliance, risk management, corporate governance. We're not making that mistake." The anchor nodded. "You've had some turnover in your compliance department recently. How are you ensuring continuity there?" Halvorson didn't flinch. "Turnover is natural in a growing company. We brought in top-tier external advisors to ensure nothing fell through the cracks. Our investors have been incredibly supportive of that approach." Lucas felt his hands ball into fists. He watched the rest of the interview in silence. When it ended, he closed his laptop, sat there, and made his decision. He wasn't signing anything. He pulled up his email and started writing to Ortega. But before he could finish, his phone rang. Emma's number. He answered. "Hey, Lucas." Her voice was shaking. "Someone was just here. At the house. A man in a suit. He left an envelope." "What kind of envelope?" "I don't know. I didn't open it. But Lucas," she was crying now, "I'm scared. Please come home." Lucas was already grabbing his keys. Lucas drove 15 miles over the speed limit the entire way home. When he pulled into the driveway, Emma was standing in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. She looked small. Scared. He got out of the car, walked up to her. "Where is it?" She pointed to the kitchen counter. The envelope was white. Letter-sized. No return address. Just his name typed on the front. Lucas picked it up. It was thick. Heavy. He opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Lucas at the coffee shop near their house. Lucas getting gas. Lucas walking out of the SEC building. Emma leaving for work. Emma at the grocery store. All of them taken from a distance. Telephoto lens. Professional quality. At the bottom of the stack was a single sheet of paper with 2 sentences. You have 24 hours to accept the severance offer. After that, we can't guarantee your wife's safety. Lucas's hands went cold. Emma was watching him. What is it? Lucas set the photos down carefully, face down so she couldn't see them. Nothing. Just legal paperwork. Lucas. Emma, please. Just give me a minute. She stared at him for a long moment, then walked upstairs. Lucas waited until he heard the bedroom door close. Then he picked up the phone and called Ortega. It took 3 rings before Ortega answered. Bennett. What's going on? They threatened my wife. There was a pause. What do you mean threatened? Lucas explained. The photos. The note. The timeline. Ortega was quiet for a long time. Then, do you still have the envelope? Yes. Don't touch it again. Don't throw it away. I'm sending someone to pick it up. When? Tonight. Within the hour. Can you stay put until then? Yes. Good. Lucas, I need you to listen to me very carefully. This changes things. If Meridian is engaging in witness intimidation, that's a federal crime. But it also means they're scared. Which means we're close. Close to what? To having enough to move forward. But I need you to hold steady. Can you do that? Lucas looked at the photos on the counter. Emma in the parking lot of her school. Unaware. Vulnerable. I don't know, he said quietly. You can. And you will. Because if you back down now, they win. And people like Halvorsen keep doing this to the next guy. And the next. Lucas didn't respond. I'll have someone there in 40 minutes, Ortega said. Sit tight. He hung up. Lucas stood in the kitchen, staring at the photos, and realized he was shaking again. The FBI agent who came to collect the evidence was a woman in her late 30s named Sarah Kemp. She wore a dark suit and carried a leather briefcase. She was polite. Professional. She photographed everything, bagged the envelope and its contents, asked Lucas to write out a timeline of events. When she left, she gave him a card. If anything else happens, anything at all, you call me. Day or night. Lucas took the card. After she left, he went upstairs. Emma was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. Who was that? She asked. FBI. Emma looked up. What? Lucas sat down beside her. They're investigating Meridian. For securities fraud. And now for witness intimidation. Emma's face went pale. Lucas, what did you do? I told the truth. And now we have the FBI in our house. They're trying to help. Emma stood, pacing. No. No, this is insane. We need to leave. We need to go stay with my parents. We need to. Emma, running isn't going to solve this. And staying here will? Lucas, they're threatening me. Threatening us. And you're just, what? You're going to keep pushing? Keep fighting? Yes. Emma stopped. Looked at him. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. I don't care about the right thing. Her voice cracked. I care about you. About us. About being safe. Lucas stood, reached for her, but she stepped back. I can't do this, she said quietly. I can't sit here every day wondering if someone's going to. She stopped herself again. Emma. I'm going to my parents. Just for a few days. Until this calms down. Emma, please. I'm not asking you to come with me. I'm not asking you to stop. I need space. I need to think. She grabbed a bag from the closet and started packing. Lucas stood there, watching her, and didn't know what to say. 20 minutes later, she was gone. For the next 2 weeks, Lucas lived alone. Emma called every few days. The conversations were short, strained. She asked if he was safe. He said yes. She asked if it was over yet. He said no. She didn't ask when she could come home. Lucas spent the days organizing documents for the SEC. He catalogued every email, every report, every piece of evidence. He built spreadsheets, cross-referenced timelines, annotated discrepancies. It was the only thing that kept him from falling apart. Ortega called regularly, gave him updates. The investigation was moving forward. Slowly. They'd subpoenaed Meridian's internal communications. They were interviewing former employees, building a case. But it would take time. Lucas didn't have time. His savings were gone. The mortgage was 2 months overdue. The bank had sent a notice. He needed work. He found it through a former colleague. A small non-profit that provided financial literacy programs to underserved communities. They needed someone to help them navigate compliance requirements for a federal grant. The pay was terrible. $1,500 for 3 months of work. But it was something. Lucas met with the director, a woman named Patricia who ran the organization out of a cramped office above a laundromat. She was in her 60s, warm, no nonsense. "I'll be honest with you," she said. "We can't afford much. But if you can help us keep this grant, it'll change lives. Real lives. Kids who've never had a bank account learning how to budget. Families getting out of debt." Lucas looked around the office. Mismatched furniture. Flickering fluorescent lights. Stacks of files everywhere. "I'll do it," he said. Patricia smiled. "Thank you." It was humbling work. Reviewing grant applications. Ensuring compliance with federal reporting requirements. Helping Patricia understand regulations she'd never had to deal with before. But it felt good. Real. Different from the abstract compliance work he'd done at Meridian. He worked nights and weekends. Sometimes at the non-profit's office. Sometimes at home, alone, in the house that felt too big and too empty without Emma. 3 months later, Ortega called. "We have a hearing date." Lucas sat up. "When?" 6 weeks. Administrative law judge. SEC Enforcement Division versus Meridian Financial Solutions. "What do you need from me?" "Testimony. You'll be called as a witness. You'll need to walk the judge through everything. What you flagged, when you flagged it, what happened after." Lucas's stomach tightened. "Will Halvorsen be there?" "Yes. And his lawyers. They're going to come at you hard, Lucas. They'll try to discredit you. Make you look incompetent, or vindictive, or both." "I know. Can you handle it?" Lucas thought about the all-hands meeting. The silence. The walk up the aisle. The door closing behind him. "Yes," he said. "I can handle it." Ortega was quiet for a moment. "Good. Because this is it. This is our shot. If we get this right, Meridian faces sanctions. Maybe criminal charges. If we don't." They walk. "Yeah." Lucas closed his eyes. "I'll be ready." That night, Lucas called Emma. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey. How are you?" "I'm okay. You?" "I'm okay." There was a long pause. "Emma, there's a hearing. In 6 weeks. I'm testifying." Silence. "I thought you should know," Lucas continued. In case you want to be there." "I don't know, Lucas." "I understand." Another pause. "Are you still at your parents'?" "Yeah." "Do you think you'll come back?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. Lucas felt something crack inside him. But he kept his voice steady. Okay. Lucas. It's okay, Emma. Really. I get it. I'm not leaving you. I need time. I know. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, Be careful, okay? I will. I mean it. I know. I will. She hung up. Lucas sat there in the dark, phone in his hand. 5 weeks later, the night before the hearing, Lucas couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through his testimony in his head. What he'd say. How he'd say it. How he'd respond when Meridian's lawyers tried to tear him apart. Around 3 a.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't look. But something made him check. It was a video file. No message. Just the file. Lucas hesitated. Then he opened it. The video was shaky. Filmed on a phone. It showed the interior of what looked like a conference room. Voices. Off camera. Then the camera panned. And Lucas's breath stopped. It was Halvorsen. Sitting at a conference table. Talking to someone Lucas couldn't see. The audio was muffled, but Lucas could make out pieces. Bennett's testimony won't hold up. We've got 3 affidavits saying he was erratic. What if the judge believes him? Halvorsen's voice, calm and certain, then we settle. Quietly. Pay the fine. Move on. But he won't. We've already seeded enough doubt. The video ended. Lucas stared at the screen. Someone inside Meridian had just sent him proof that they were coordinating to discredit him. But he had no idea who. Or why. Lucas forwarded the video to Ortega at 3:47 a.m. By 6 a.m., Ortega called him back. Where did you get this? I don't know. It came from an unknown number. Can we verify it's legitimate? I recognized Halvorsen's voice. And the conference room, it's the executive floor at Meridian. I've been in that room. Ortega was quiet for a moment. This is explosive. But we can't use it unless we can authenticate it. And even then, it's risky. If the chain of custody is compromised. So what do I do with it? Nothing. For now. Focus on your testimony. Stick to what we prepared. If we need this, we'll deal with it later. Lucas hung up, but the video stayed with him. Someone inside Meridian wanted him to win. Or wanted Halvorsen to lose. He couldn't figure out which. The hearing room was smaller than Lucas expected. Plain walls. Fluorescent lights. A long table at the front where the administrative law judge would sit. 2 tables facing each other. One for the SEC, one for Meridian. Lucas arrived early. Ortega was already there, setting up files. Jessica Nguyen was with him, along with another attorney Lucas hadn't met before. You ready? Ortega asked. Lucas nodded, though his hands were shaking slightly. Remember, Ortega said quietly. Stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't speculate. Don't get emotional. Just tell the truth. I know. At 8:55 a.m., Meridian's legal team arrived. There were 6 of them, all in expensive suits, all carrying leather briefcases and rolling files. And at the center of them, calm and composed, was Richard Halvorsen. He looked exactly the same as he had at the all-hands meeting. Tailored suit. Confident posture. He glanced at Lucas once, briefly, then looked away as if he were a stranger. Lucas felt something cold settle in his chest. At 9 a.m., the judge entered. Everyone stood. The first 2 hours were procedural. Opening statements. Preliminary motions. Exhibits entered into evidence. Lucas sat at the table beside Ortega, trying to focus, but his mind kept drifting. He kept glancing at Halvorsen, who sat perfectly still, occasionally leaning over to whisper something to one of his lawyers. Finally, just before noon, Ortega called Lucas to testify. Lucas stood, walked to the witness chair, was sworn in. Ortega began with the basics: name, background, how long he'd worked at Meridian, what his role had been. Lucas answered each question clearly, methodically. Then Ortega moved to the heart of it. Mr. Bennett, in July of 2024, did you raise concerns about Meridian Series C disclosures? Yes. Can you describe those concerns? Lucas took a breath. The offering structure included unregistered securities under Section 5 of the Securities Act. The disclosure documents didn't address this. I believed it was a material omission. And did you document these concerns? Yes. I sent a compliance memo to my supervisor, the General Counsel, and the CFO on July 12. Ortega entered the memo into evidence, projected it onto a screen. Lucas walked through it, line by line, what he'd flagged, why it mattered, what the risks were. The room was silent. Then Ortega asked, "What happened after you sent this memo?" "I was told the issue was being reviewed by external counsel." "Were you involved in that review?" "No. I was removed from the project on August 11th. "And were you given a reason?" "I was told it was being handled by specialists." Ortega paused. "Mr. Bennett, were you terminated on September 2nd, 2024? "Yes." "And what reason were you given?" Lucas's voice was steady. "I was told I had failed to disclose material compliance issues, that I had put the company at regulatory risk." Ortega let that hang in the air for a moment. Then he entered the final investor memo into evidence, the one certified by Whitmore and Associates. "Mr. Bennett, does this document reflect the concerns you raised in your July memo?" Lucas scanned it. "No. Can you elaborate?" "The final memo claims all securities were reviewed for compliance and that disclosure requirements were met. That's the opposite of what I documented." "And who certified this final version?" "Whitmore and Associates, an external law firm." "Were you consulted during their review?" "No." Ortega nodded. No further questions. Meridian's lead attorney stood. His name was Charles Brennan. Late 50s. Silver hair. The kind of lawyer who made $400 an hour look effortless. "Mr. Bennett," Brennan began, his tone polite but sharp. "You were employed at Meridian for 6 years, correct?" "Yes." "And during that time, how many compliance reviews did you conduct?" "Dozens." "And how many resulted in you being removed from a project?" Lucas hesitated. "One." "Just one. The Series C review?" "Yes." Brennan walked to his table, picked up a file. "Mr. Bennett, I have here performance reviews from your time at Meridian. May I read from your most recent one, dated June 2024? Ortega stood. Objection. Relevance. The judge looked at Brennan. Counselor. Your Honor, the witness has portrayed himself as a diligent compliance officer unfairly removed from a project. I'm establishing context for that removal. The judge nodded. Overruled. Proceed. Brennan read, Lucas is thorough and detail-oriented, but has shown resistance to adapting compliance frameworks in fast-moving environments. Recommendations. Work on flexibility and collaborative decision-making. He looked up. Does that sound familiar, Mr. Bennett? Yes. So your own supervisor noted that you had difficulty adapting to fast-moving environments. That's one interpretation. Is there another? Lucas kept his voice level. I was cautious. In compliance, caution isn't a flaw. Brennan smiled thinly. Or its rigidity. An inability to see the bigger picture. Ortega stood again. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Brennan moved on. Mr. Bennett, you were terminated on September 2nd. Did you appeal that decision? No. Did you file a wrongful termination claim? No. Did you request a severance negotiation? No. So you accepted your termination without contest. Lucas's jaw tightened. I was told I had no grounds to contest it. By whom? By Meridian's HR department. Brennan raised an eyebrow. So you took their word for it. You didn't consult an employment attorney. I couldn't afford one. I see. Brennan paused. Mr. Bennett, when did you first contact the SEC about Meridian? Lucas felt his pulse quicken. October. A month after your termination. Yes. And what prompted that contact? I discovered inconsistencies between my original compliance work and the final disclosures submitted to investors. Inconsistencies. Or differences of professional opinion. No. Factual discrepancies. Brennan walked closer. Mr. Bennett, isn't it true that you contacted the SEC because you were angry about being fired? That this is retaliation disguised as whistleblowing? No. You expect this court to believe that you, a recently terminated employee with no income and no prospects, contacted federal regulators purely out of civic duty. Lucas looked him in the eye. Yes. Brennan smiled. No further questions. During the lunch recess, Lucas sat in a small conference room with Ortega. You did well, Ortega said. It didn't feel like it. Brennan's job is to make you look vindictive. You didn't give him much to work with. Lucas rubbed his face. What's next? This afternoon, we call our expert witness, a securities law professor who reviewed your memos and Meridian's disclosures. She'll testify that your concerns were legitimate and that the final disclosures were misleading. And then Meridian calls their witnesses. Probably Halvorsen. Maybe Karen Dietrich. They'll argue that your concerns were overblown and that external counsel properly vetted everything. Lucas nodded. Lucas, Ortega said quietly. We're close. Stay focused. At 2:30 p.m., Ortega entered the recorded conversation into evidence. Lucas had almost forgotten about it. The meeting from a year ago. The one he'd recorded on his phone after being warned he was making things difficult. Ortega played it for the court. Halvorsen's voice filled the room. We'll handle the regulatory piece after we close. Lucas, I need you to be a team player here. This is a career-defining moment for all of us. Lucas's voice, quieter. I can't certify something I know is non-compliant. Halvorsen, laughing. Then maybe compliance isn't the right fit for you. The recording ended. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Lucas looked at Halvorsen. For the first time all day, Halvorsen's expression had changed. His jaw was tight. His eyes hard. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Brennan, does your client wish to make a statement regarding this recording? Brennan stood. Your Honor, we were not made aware of this evidence prior to today. We'd like time to review its authenticity and context. Motion denied. The recording was properly disclosed in discovery. Mr. Halvorsen, you'll have an opportunity to respond during your testimony. Brennan sat back down. Halvorsen leaned over, whispered something to him. Brennan shook his head. At 4:47 p.m., the judge called a recess until the following morning. Lucas stood, exhausted. Ortega was packing up files. Good work today, Ortega said. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be tougher. Lucas nodded. He walked out of the hearing room into the hallway. And stopped. Emma was standing there. She looked tired. Nervous. But she was there. Hey, she said quietly. Lucas felt something break inside him. Hey. I watched from the back. I didn't want to distract you. You came. Of course I came. They stood there for a moment, not touching, just looking at each other. Then Emma said, Lucas, there's something you need to know. What? I got a call this morning. From a blocked number. A woman. She said she worked at Meridian. She wouldn't give her name. But she said, Emma's voice wavered. She said Halvorson's planning something. That tomorrow's going to be bad. And that you need to be ready. Lucas's chest tightened. Did she say what? No. She just said to watch the cross-examination. That they're going to try to destroy you. Lucas looked back at the hearing room doors. Then his phone buzzed. Another message. Unknown number. He opened it. It was a single sentence. Check your personnel file. Page 11. They forged your signature. Lucas didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, staring at the personnel file he'd requested months ago through his attorney. He'd read through it once before, skimmed it, really, looking for anything obviously wrong. He'd missed page 11. It was a compliance certification form. Dated August 18, 2024. 6 days after he'd been removed from the Series C review. The form stated that Lucas Bennett had reviewed and approved the final disclosure documents for Meridian Series C funding round. That all regulatory requirements had been met. That he stood by the accuracy of the information provided to investors. At the bottom was a signature. His signature. Except he'd never seen this document before. And he'd never signed it. Lucas zoomed in on the signature. It looked close. But the loop on the B was wrong. Too tight. And the tail on the T was too long. Someone had forged it. He forwarded the file to Ortega with a single line. I never signed this. They fabricated my approval. Then he went upstairs and tried to sleep. He couldn't. The next morning, Lucas arrived at the hearing room at 8:30. Emma was already there, sitting in the back row. She gave him a small, encouraging nod. Ortega pulled Lucas aside before they went in. I saw the file. We're entering it as evidence this morning. This changes everything. How? Because it's not just securities fraud anymore. It's forgery. Falsification of records. If we can prove Meridian created a fake compliance certification in your name, it shows intent to deceive. Premeditation. Lucas felt his chest tighten. What do I need to do? Just what you've been doing. Tell the truth. Stay calm. Let the documents speak for themselves. At 9 a.m., the judge called the hearing to order. Ortega stood immediately. Your Honor, the SEC would like to enter additional evidence that came to light last night. Brennan stood. Objection. Discovery closed weeks ago. Your Honor, Ortega said, this document was in the plaintiff's possession, but its significance wasn't clear until Mr. Bennett's testimony yesterday. It's a compliance certification bearing his signature, except he never signed it. The judge looked at Brennan. Does Meridian have a response? Brennan's face was carefully neutral. We'd need to examine the document before commenting. You'll have your chance. Motion granted. Mr. Ortega, proceed. Ortega entered the form into evidence and projected it on the screen. He called Lucas back to the stand. Mr. Bennett, have you seen this document before? Lucas looked at it. No. Does it bear your signature? It appears to. But I didn't sign it. How can you be certain? Because I was removed from the Series C review on August 11th. This is dated August 18th. I had no access to these documents. And I would never have approved disclosures I'd already flagged as non-compliant. Ortega zoomed in on the signature. Is this your signature? Lucas studied it. It's close. But it's not mine. The letter forms are wrong. Do you have an example of your actual signature from that time period? Yes. I have emails I signed digitally. Expense reports. Timesheets. Ortega entered 3 comparison documents, projected them side by side with the certification form. The differences were subtle, but they were there. The judge leaned forward, studying the screen. Ortega turned to Lucas. "Mr. Bennett, to your knowledge, did anyone at Meridian have access to samples of your signature?" "Yes. HR. Payroll. Anyone with access to my personnel file." "Thank you. No further questions." Brennan stood for cross-examination. But this time, he looked rattled. "Mr. Bennett, you claim this isn't your signature, but you admit it resembles your signature." "Yes." "Isn't it possible you simply don't remember signing this document? It was over a year ago." "No. I would remember approving something I explicitly refused to approve." Brennan paused, glanced at his notes. "Your Honor, we'd like to request a recess to consult with our client." The judge checked the time. 15 minutes. During the recess, Lucas sat with Emma in the hallway. She held his hand. Didn't say anything. Just sat with him. After a while, she said quietly, "You were right." Lucas looked at her. "About what?" "About not letting it go. About fighting. I was wrong to ask you to stop. You were scared. I don't blame you." "I'm still scared," Emma admitted. "But I'm proud of you." Lucas felt something loosen in his chest. Before he could respond, Ortega appeared in the doorway. "They want to settle." Lucas and Emma followed Ortega into a small conference room. Brennan was there. So was Halvorsen. Halvorsen looked older than he had the day before. Tired. His confidence was gone. Brennan spoke first. "We're prepared to offer a settlement. Meridian will pay a fine to the SEC, make corrective disclosures to investors, and implement enhanced compliance oversight. In exchange, we'd like to avoid further proceedings." Ortega looked at Lucas. "It's your call." Lucas looked at Halvorsen. Halvorsen met his eyes for the first time. There was no arrogance there now. Just exhaustion. "What about my name?" Lucas asked quietly. "What about the fact that you fired me in front of 400 people and told them I was incompetent?" Halvorsen looked down. "We'll issue a public correction. Acknowledge that your termination was improper. Provide a letter of recommendation." "And the forged signature?" Brennan answered. "That's still under investigation. We don't have conclusive proof of who created that document." Lucas almost laughed. "You don't have proof. Or you don't want to find it." Halvorsen looked up. "Lucas, I'm sorry. Truly. We made mistakes. I made mistakes. But dragging this out doesn't help anyone." Lucas sat there, staring at the man who'd humiliated him, blacklisted him, threatened his wife. Then he turned to Ortega. "What's the fine?" $2.5 million. Plus restitution to investors." "And Halvorsen?" Ortega glanced at Brennan. "Mr. Halvorsen will be stepping down as CEO, effective immediately." Lucas looked at Halvorsen again. Halvorsen's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. "Okay," Lucas said. "I'll take it." The settlement was finalized 3 days later. The SEC issued a press release. Meridian Financial Solutions had agreed to pay $2.5 million in penalties for material omissions in their Series C disclosures. Richard Halvorsen had resigned. An independent compliance review was underway. Buried in the third paragraph was a sentence. The investigation was initiated following concerns raised by a former compliance officer. Lucas's name wasn't mentioned. He was fine with that. 2 weeks later, Lucas got a call from a woman named Dr. Evelyn Park. She ran a regulatory consultancy that worked with mid-sized companies navigating compliance in highly regulated industries. "I read about the Meridian case," she said. "I know you weren't named, but I have sources. I know it was you." Lucas didn't confirm or deny. I'm looking for someone to lead our compliance advisory division, she continued. Someone who understands that compliance isn't about checking boxes. It's about integrity. I think that might be you. Lucas met with her the following week. The office was smaller than Meridian. The pay was less. But the work was real. And when Dr. Park asked him how he'd approach building a compliance program, Lucas answered honestly. She offered him the job on the spot. 3 months later, Lucas came home to find Emma in the kitchen, cooking. It was the first time in over a year that the house felt normal. "How was work?" she asked. "Good. We signed a new client today. A biotech startup. They actually want to do things right from the beginning." Emma smiled. "That's great." Lucas set his bag down, walked over to her. "How was your day?" "Long. But good. One of my students finally turned in his essay. The one he's been avoiding for weeks." "Progress?" "Yeah." They stood there for a moment, just existing in the quiet. Then Emma said, "I'm glad you're home." "Me too." That weekend, Lucas got an email. It was from Marcus O'Hearn, his former colleague at Meridian. The subject line, "Thank you." Lucas opened it. "Hey Lucas, I don't know if you'll read this, but I wanted to reach out. A lot of us knew what happened to you wasn't right. But we didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry for that. For what it's worth, things are changing here. New leadership. New policies. People are actually asking questions now instead of just going along. I think you did that. So thank you." Lucas read it twice. Then he closed his laptop and went outside. Emma was sitting on the porch, reading. Lucas sat beside her. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "I think I am." She reached over, took his hand. They sat there together as the sun set, not talking, not needing to. For the first time in over a year, Lucas wasn't afraid. Not of being wrong. Not of being alone. Not of what came next. He'd told the truth. And the truth had been enough. If you loved this captivating story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you turn on the notification bell, so you never miss another powerful story like this one when it drops. If underdog stories like this one resonate with you, take a moment to check our channel. You'll find a full catalog of powerful underdog stories, stories of the overlooked, the silenced, and the underestimated who rise and triumph. Thank you for watching.